LR Case File 0319UGA, 2017, Kampala, Uganda. A meeting is going on, and the locals of the island think that an investor is going to build a hospital. A Spaniard with a North Korean passport is in on a triangle deal, but calls the local people of this African government monkeys that would steal everything, even a drop of water. And they always need to have an Albion European master telling them what to do, or they would start acting like animals and quickly destroy and take everything. It's a business deal with North Korean officials, Ugandan officials, and landlords. This potential deal could flood millions of neighborhoods with weapons and narcotics. These officials calmly negotiate false products and prices like buying seafood. What the officials don't know, hidden in one of these men's shirts, is a pinhole camera recording every word on the record and off. What else don't they know? This man isn't a dealer in arms. He's an unemployed Danish chef on government disability with zero spy training. And he's been doing this for over 5 years at this point. No backup other than his MI5 handler, an old employer, a man that North Korea does not like because of his propaganda films, no extraction team, and no second chances. If they discover these hidden cameras, he dies in a North Korean black site or is captured and tortured in an African country for only 50 US Federal Reserve notes. If he pulls this off, he exposes the most secretive regime on Earth. One twitch, one wrong answer, or one suspicious glance, and it's over. Intelligence analysts would later describe this footage as the most severe, revealing information that North Korea and the Kim Jong-un dynasty had ever seen. A disabled chef just took advantage of an entire dictatorship. How did a nobody on the radar fool the world's most paranoid government? And what happens when military powers in Pyongyang realize they've been betrayed? Part 1. The New Mole. This story all began in Copenhagen in 2010. Ulrich Larsen, a man sitting in his living room staring at a flickering television. He faces early retirement, a former chef whose career ended when chronic illness forced him onto disability payments. No job, no prospects, and no training in espionage. Just a man sinking into his couch, wondering if adventure had permanently passed him by. The walls of his house feel like they're closing in a little more each day. Then something on the screen gets his attention. A 2006 documentary called The Red Chapel. In it, a Danish filmmaker named Mads Berger and 2 comedians sneak into North Korea, posing as a comedy troupe. The regime in Pyongyang really hates the film, and because of that, Berger can never travel back to North Korea. Looking at this film from a Western point of view, the film has its moments, but it does not offer up the truth he is looking for, the irrefutable proof that North Korea is an evil and criminal enterprise. Ever since then, Berger has been on a quest to prove these points. Due to his actions, he will be forever banned from the Korean Chamber of Secrets unless he finds a way to break in without getting noticed. If you take a look at other interviews with Ulrich, the footage is captivating and riveting at the same time. A glimpse behind Pyongyang's Iron Curtain, laced with dark humor and genuine danger. Ulrich thinks forward about this ideal internally to the point where his pulse quickens. If they got in, what's stopping me? He probably thought slightly to himself. Later that night, his mind won't rest. North Korea this. Infiltrate enemy lines. That, the most isolated regime on the planet. A real-life spy thriller waiting to happen. He's not a real spy, not a soldier, not anything but a guy with an idea, but to investigate. And yet, a single idea lodges itself and refuses to leave. What if I try to expose their secrets? Most people would laugh it off and go to sleep. Even telling his wife is hard for him. The following day, Ulrich opens his laptop and sends an email. In the Danish calendar year of 2010, Ulrich sends an email to another Danish, a film director named Mads Berger. Yes, the same filmmaker of the movie, The Red Chapel, from a stranger who had seen the documentary he had made about North Korea. He asked if Mads would be interested in making a new film about his quest to become a member of his local North Korean Friendship Association in Denmark to enable him to travel to Pyongyang undercover. There are Korean Friendship Associations, KFA, in countries around the world, and their members, bizarrely, are devoted to the glorification of the world's last totalitarian communist dictatorship. In this extraordinary idea, a stranger becomes a mole and rises through the ranks of the KFA, filming meetings, funneling information, and tunneling his way undercover to the North Korea regime. On this mission, he befriends and wins the trust of the president. It sounds like a joke, but 3 days later, Rugger writes back. He doesn't need someone inside North Korea. He needs eyes on the regime's global shadow operations. Pyongyang funds itself through illegal arms sales, drug trafficking, and sanction busting, schemes scattered across continents. For instance, doing this kind of work may seem hypocritical, since the same governments and associations they utilize are using the same corrupt powers too. An ordinary foreigner, invisible and underestimated, might slip into those networks undetected. Ulrich's first move is almost laughable, insane even. He joins a fan club, the Korean Friendship Association, or KFA, a global organization of foreign admirers of North Korea, communist nostalgists, curious travelers, and a handful of true believers who genuinely worship the Kim dynasty. The group has chapters in over 100 countries, and its members range from harmless eccentrics to people with genuine access to Pyongyang's power structure. Ulrich figures it's the perfect cover. Pretend to be a sympathizer and see what doors open. He attends local KFA meetings across Europe, singing odes to Kim Jong and parroting regime talking points about Western conspiracies. He plays the naive, ardent supporter, and he plays it well too. Well, KFA leadership starts noticing this eager Danish comrade who never misses a meeting. Ulrich volunteers for grunt work no one else wants, organizing newsletters, managing email lists, and actively looking for new recruits, the tedious labor others avoid. He does it without complaint. Month after month, year after year, patience becomes his weapon. He finally becomes a member of the board working under Chairman Christensen, a so-called die-hard communist. While others chase quick access or grow bored and drift away, Ulrich builds trust brick by brick. That guy's a true believer, people start to say, but they have no idea he's recording sensitive notes on every interaction, every suspicious whisper, every name and phone number he can collect. A mole burrowing in one conversation at a time. His family knows nothing. Over dinner each night, Ulrich is the picture of normality. A husband and father chatting about groceries and weather and the kids' homework. But after everyone sleeps, he's on his laptop messaging KFA contacts, studying Pyongyang's latest propaganda and refining his act. That double life is crazy. Nobody by day, inching into a rogue regime's confidence by night. Exhilarating and terrifying. Ulrich often lies awake, wondering if he's in over his head. But he keeps going because North Korea's inner circle is actually paying attention to him. Each small success feeds the next. In 2011, after a year of dutiful service, Ulrich received an invitation. A guided trip to Pyongyang. It's a propaganda tour organized by the KFA, designed to show hand-picked foreigners the sanitized version of North Korea. For Ulrich, it's both a test and a threshold. If he actually flies to North Korea, he'll be under surveillance every waking second. Government officials will shadow his every step. One slip, one wrong expression, or one misplaced question could get him arrested as a spy or worse. But refusing means never earning the access he needs. He accepts. On the flight, he repeats the single rule over and over in his head. Stick to the cover story. He's just a friendly Danish chef who loves the great leader. Nothing more. Pyongyang, North Korea 2012. The mole went to North Korea, and the North Koreans took a liking to him. His main contact person in North Korea was a man named Kong, who works for the Ministry of Cultural Affairs. Kong is a key person in this tale of deceit and intrigue. Stepping into North Korea feels like entering another planet. Portraits of Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il stare down from every wall. Government minders in dark suits shadow the tour group's every step, watching for any sign of dissent or curiosity that cuts too deep. Ulrich forces himself to gasp at the mass infrastructure, to bow before the statues, to gush over the carefully staged happy citizens working in fields and factories. At the giant bronze Kim Il-sung monument in Pyongyang, he places flowers and bows deeply like a pilgrim at a shrine. Surreal and sickening to most outsiders. But he knows that he has been a trustworthy ally to the regime, but for certainly the officials are watching his face for any hint of insincerity. Back at the hotel, almost certainly bugged, he praises the DPRK to his hosts with fabricated enthusiasm. Every lie brings him closer to what he's really after. But every lie also tightens the noose if anyone suspects the truth. By the trip's end, Ulrich has proven his usefulness to key figures, especially Alejandro Caudinos. Alejandro is a Spanish aristocrat who claims he's just a son of a worker, a contributor to the construction of a socialist country. He created the Korean Friendship Association so he could facilitate meetings and be the bridge between the DPRK and the rest of the countries in the world. There will be no world without North Korea if North Korea is attacked, he claims. Most people think he turned communist. A man who has devoted his life to being Pyongyang's gatekeeper in the West, a Spaniard in love with Kim Jong-un. You can't invent someone this strange. He wears a North Korean military uniform to international conferences, speaks fluent Korean, and genuinely seems to believe everything the regime tells him. He's eccentric, influential, and exactly who Ulrich needs. After meeting in Pyongyang, Ulrich decides to lay it on thick, praising Alejandro's work, asking how he can help more. And it works. Alejandro begins treating Ulrich like his loyal Danish lieutenant. The nobody from Copenhagen is now on a first-name basis with one of North Korea's key international fixers. But being inside doesn't mean Ulrich has access to the regime's darkest secrets. To reach those, he'll need evidence powerful enough to make Pyongyang come to him. What could possibly tempt a so-called nuclear-armed dictatorship into exposing itself? And where would a disabled chef find that kind of leverage? He doesn't know it yet, but this is the point of no return. Ulrich has infiltrated the outer circle. What comes next will be anything but boring. Exchanging friendly emails with Alejandro about recruiting new members. Another idea is forming in Ulrich's mind. Seeing North Korea up close has changed him. The regime will gladly break any law if it thinks no one's watching. He's witnessed the chasm between propaganda and reality, and it's ignited something deep in his gut. The question is, how does a small fry get handed real secrets? North Korea won't reveal anything valuable just because it's helpful. If he wants to expose a sanctions evasion scheme, he'll need to dangle something the regime desperately craves. Ulrich lies awake, turning it over. What does North Korea want most from foreigners? The answer is obvious. Money, hard currency, investments, and ways to earn cash under the table without international eyes prying. Barcelona, Spain, 2013. A Spaniard with a North Korean passport. Ulrich meets with the president of the KFA, Alejandro Caudinos. They were in a small hotel in the outskirts of Barcelona, and they talked for 2 or 3 hours. Of course, a lot about North Korea. And then they started talking about Chairman Christensen of the Denmark branch. Alejandro expresses that he has not evolved, nor does he bring forth any new efforts. Ulrich agrees with the statement, and then from there, Alejandro appointed Ulrich to be the official delegate of the KFA Denmark branch. Cologne, Germany, 2013. A year to remember. At the start of Ulrich's participation in annual meetings in the KFA, He starts in Germany, then he visits Brussels, Belgium in 2014, Tarragona, Spain in 2015, spreading the message of the North Korean regime and creating a contact list of potential cash cows. The Spaniard with a North Korean passport eventually asks him to help source wealthy investors interested in business deals with North Korea. From the start, the mole has been reporting back to Mads Brugger, and they've been planning secret spy tactics with old CIA contacts, recording meetings for evidence against North Korea to present at an international venue. Ulrich's old employer and a man trusted to fit the end description for Mads Brugger, they bring in an actor and ex-criminal called Mr. James to play the role of a Scandinavian billionaire to see what business deals North Korea will bring them. An email, an offering, a plan. Thinking to himself as an undercover volunteer, why does a bored, chronically ill chef want to take on Kim Jong-un and his dealings? The Kim regime is starved for funds and crushed under international sanctions that have only tightened with each nuclear test. If someone appeared offering millions for a good cause, they'd bite. Ulrich realizes he needs to become that someone or find someone who can. But where does an unemployed chef find a fake millionaire willing to waltz into a criminal conspiracy? He stares at himself in the mirror, quiet, average, and unremarkable in every way. No one would believe he's wealthy. He needs a partner in this insane play, and fate is about to deliver one in the most unexpected form. Ulrich has earned the regime's trust. Now, he must exploit it. He's proven he's a friend. Next, he'll become their prospective business partner. By hinting he knows investors interested in North Korea's projects, Ulrich dangles the carrot. The response is immediate. Pyongyang is very interested. This is the moment a hobbyist infiltration transforms into an international sting operation. Ulrich takes a deep breath, and it's time to create Mr. James. The billionaire bait. Oslo, Norway, 2016. Alejandro and Ulrich have exciting news. A potential private meeting. A VIP is coming to Europe. No North Korean official are present, but Alejandro wants Ulrich to be present. Why? Because Ulrich has talked up a mysterious investor friend who might fund projects in North Korea. But it's a lie. There is no investor, not yet. But Ulrich bluffed that he could produce one if the opportunity were right. Now Pyongyang's intermediaries are nibbling the bait. They want a face-to-face. In just a few years, Ulrich has gone from ex-chef to unofficial bagman for an imaginary millionaire, arranging meetings with sanctioned regime emissaries. Funny if it weren't so dangerous. Ulrich phones Brugger, the filmmaker, quietly guiding this operation from the shadows. They agree. Time to recruit an actor to play the money man. Someone convincing. Someone who won't flinch under pressure. Someone who looks the part of an international criminal. Now enters Jim, soon to be known as Mr. James. Jim is a character, tall, muscular, with a thick beard and tattoos up both arms. When Ulrich first meets him, he thinks Jim looks like he stepped out of a biker gang or a James Bond villain casting call. Jim's real background only adds credibility. Former French Foreign Legion soldier, ex-convict who served time for drug dealing years ago. In other words, he has the authentic outlaw resume to pass as an international black market player. If Mr. James is supposed to be a wealthy, unscrupulous investor willing to do illegal business with North Korea, Jim is ideal. Every boy's dream is to be James Bond, right? Jim jokes when they meet. In his own way, he's about to live that dream. They craft the legend carefully. Mr. James, a rich Scandinavian who made his fortune in oil and shady enterprises. Money burning a hole in his pocket. Zero morals about where to invest. North Korea's sanctioned weapons and drug factories don't scare him. They interest him. That's the story. Ulrich will act as the trusted facilitator, bringing Mr. James into the fold. To sell it, they polish every detail. Jim acquires a sleek suit, a luxury watch, practices an arrogant swagger befitting a man who's made millions through questionable means. Jim's all grins and nods. He's got that adrenaline junkie vibe, and he's been itching for a thrill like this forever. Their first meet with Alejandro. Ulrich and Jim show up, hearts racing but keeping their cool. Alejandro's there, as cheerful as ever, sporting his North Korean lapel pin. They clink glasses, exchange pleasantries, and feel each other out. Jim, playing Mr. James, spins a tale about successful companies, new opportunities, and admiration for countries standing up to the U.S. Alejandro and Ulrich share a glance. They're digging what they hear. Then Jim drops a hint. I'm particularly interested in, let's say, special products that are hard to come by thanks to UN sanctions. He flashes a knowing smile. For a moment, Ulrich goes quiet, his expression unreadable. Did Jim push too hard? Alejandro clears his throat, eyes sparkling, and says in a low voice, "There are ways, Mr. James, if one is a true friend to our cause, to get special commodities off the record." Relief washes over Ulrich. They've hooked them. As the night goes on, polite chit-chat morphs into cold, hard talk about illegal deals. By the second bottle of wine, the diplomat is sketching offers, small arms at first, maybe some counterfeit cigarettes. Jim waves that off, saying, "I'm talking big weapons and drugs. Whatever makes money, my friends. If the price is right, I'm in." The North Korean gatekeeper finally cracks a smile, a thin, sly grin like a shark sensing blood in the water. In that smoky Oslo hotel, a deal starts to take shape. Shortly after, when Alejandro returns back to Spain, he gets arrested for arms dealing. Dublin, Ireland, 2016. Ulrich's first KFA meeting without Alejandro. This is the best chance for him to move up in the ranks. He gives speeches at local KFA meetings to highlight the problems with law enforcement regarding weapons dealing and the claims that Alejandro is the ringleader. All the KFA delegates in attendance give a brief presentation on why the KFA should band together and fight these foreign powers. But all along the mole is putting up a front just so he can find a way to get in the good graces of Alejandro. North Korea's envoys are offering to sell missiles and manufacture methamphetamine for a foreign ally. Madrid, Spain, August 2016. The regime that publicly denies all illicit activity is here eagerly hatching criminal schemes over dinner and wine. Alejandro chimes in enthusiastically. Our government is very interested in joint ventures. We can be partners. He mentions a particular opportunity. North Korea has first-rate military tech and plenty of chemists. What they lack is a safe overseas location to produce in secret from the watchful eyes of the international inspectors. Alejandro asked, "Does Mr. James know a place where an underground factory might escape prying eyes?" Jim and Ulrich exchange a glance, as if considering. Jim replies casually, "I might." Let's keep that on the table. Ulrich's mind is racing. This is beyond what he expected from a single dinner. They're openly discussing crimes that could start wars. He excuses himself to the restroom, claiming too much wine. Inside the restroom, he silently pumps his fist. It's happening. They've captured these men openly conspiring on hidden recorders. But this is only step one. They need concrete proof of an actual transaction, signed documents, physical evidence, or something that can't be dismissed as loose talk. North Korea has basically said, "Bring us a plan and some cash, and we'll do anything." So Ulrich and Jim will bring them a plan so outrageous it strains belief. Before the night ends, Alejandro spills his wish list on behalf of the North Koreans. They mention Yemen and Syria, conflict zones where they could sell weapons if Mr. James connects buyers. They hint at surface-to-air missiles, at setting up a meth lab wherever Mr. James wants it. Jim feigns interest, but plays coy. He doesn't commit. He says he'll think about these opportunities. As they part ways on the street, Alejandro clasps Ulrich's hand. "My friend Pyongyang will be very pleased. We must take this to the next level. There's a gleam in his eye, a gleam of a man who smells money. Ulrich smiles and nods, thinking, if only you knew what you've just walked into. Outside in the cool night air, Ulrich and Jim feel the weight of what just happened. They retreat to a safe location and are debriefed by Mads Brugger. The hidden footage is pure gold. North Korean officials are agreeing on weapon sales and drug production with total nonchalance, like they're discussing a real estate deal. But Mads pushes them further. Talk is talk. They need the regime to sign something solid that the world can't ignore. Ulrich thinks it's time to raise the stakes. They concoct an ambitious follow-up. Mr. James will propose a full-blown arms factory disguised as something innocent. If the North Koreans sign a contract, it becomes the smoking gun that proves everything. In this second meeting with Mr. James and Alejandro explains why he was arrested in Spain. He says various secret services from other countries are involved, so the judge ordered them to retain his passport. And he cannot leave Spanish territories because he had multiple weapons. Machine guns, handguns, and guns he keeps around at home. All kind of weapons were detained. But discussions turns to the weapons trade in North Korea. Alejandro has no idea that his confession and the deal on the table might lead him down a darker path. The North Koreans treat him like a genuinely shady ally they've known for years. They discuss arms deals in the Middle East, rockets to Yemen, and weapons to factions in Libya. Nothing is off limits. Ulrich sat quietly at the table, playing the loyal sidekick, taking notes. Inside, he's astonished. The regime is soliciting an arms catalog request, like a salesman at a trade show. At one point, the official says plainly, "If you want weapons, tell us what you need. We make all kinds. Missiles, rifles, anything, as long as it stays secret." A country that can barely feed its people, grinding like a street hustler chasing after cash. By the end of Madrid, the ultimate invitation is extended. Come to Pyongyang. They want to show Mr. James the goods in person, a private tour of what they can offer. It's a clear sign of trust or desperation, or both. Alejandro is practically glowing. If Mr. James flies to North Korea, the regime will roll out the red carpet behind closed doors. Ulrich and Jim accept graciously. Later alone, they acknowledge the gravity of what they've just agreed to. Going into North Korea undercover with hidden cameras is insanely dangerous. If security finds a suspicious SD card, if anyone recognizes Jim from his criminal past, they could end up in a labor camp or dead. There would be no rescue mission and no extraction team. Jim cracks a grin. "You only live once, right?" Ulrich nervously chuckles. The plan is a go, but what exactly will they find inside the world's most secretive state? And can two amateurs with pinhole cameras survive what Pyongyang is prepared for them? Washington, D.C., 2016. As you know it, the mole, he's just a retired chef, and he gets it. So he decides to go see a teacher who could give him a crash course in tradecraft amongst spies. In short, he went to go see Max, a former CIA agent. Just in case he slips up, things could really go south. Imagine this. He could end up tied up in the town square with a blowtorch aimed at him, and nobody around to lend a hand. For this situation, Berger trusted only one former CIA agent with the identity and secrets of the mole? But seriously, why trust the CIA at all? It could lead you down some pretty sketchy paths. Good question, right? But here's the thing. Max, the CIA mentor, had been fired and wasn't exactly on good terms with them anymore, which made it safer to trust him at the moment. In short, Mads was in need of someone who could teach him the ropes before he returned to North Korea. Ulrich and the ex-CIA agent run through scenario after scenario. If somebody's holding a gun on you, you're not going to expect them to take it away. All you're looking for is a split-second edge. And besides, as the saying goes, who can you trust these days? Observation skills are key, right? What's common is common, and when something stands out, it does so for a reason. You really need to be aware of your surroundings. Nowadays, it's like you might as well hand over your phone and say, "Here, take a look." It's that easy for someone to dig into your messages. You got to assume that they can read all your emails and can look way back. You have to be convincing from the very start, because in reality, you never once believed in the regime, and they're going to feel like you've betrayed them in the end. Let's be real, you never believed in socialism or communism, and you definitely didn't think North Korea was a place to visit. You were just playing the part the whole time. Plus, be careful not to set a trap for yourself. For instance, if someone walks out of the room and leaves papers behind, don't touch them. Seriously, just don't go near them. They could easily say, "Oh, we knew you'd go through those." Just ignore them. This is the real deal, my friend. A mole and their team will be called and think that they are heroes for pulling this off, but it's super risky. The old CIA agent taught them the spy life and sent them off on their journey and wishes good luck to them and Godspeed. Around this time, a European who went to an American university got arrested in North Korea. Can you believe it? He was sentenced to hard labor just for stealing a propaganda poster. His crime? Simply taking a poster from his hotel room. Another European caught right in the middle of Pyongyang's propaganda parade. Part 2. Undercover in Pyongyang. January 2017. As they discussed, Ulrich and Jim made it to North Korea. On arrival, they realized they landed at a new airport in Pyongyang. Then 3 steps out of the flight, Ulrich was pulled to the side because he has a camera in his bag. The officer said he had to call a higher-up to check things out because of the camera. But it was different for Mr. James. When he landed, 2 government officials were waiting on him, and when he came into contact with them, they took his suitcase off the table and took him the other way around, and they put him in a VIP lounge, while Ulrich was stopped at the front and been waiting for about 5 minutes. Then Mr. K said, "Do you have your medal on? Show him." Then Ulrich took off his jacket and showed the guard. When the guard realized his badges, he quickly apologizes and lets Ulrich through and told him, "Welcome to North Korea." And Ulrich just took all his equipment without any check and walked straight out for a Mercedes-Benz to pick them up. When they started heading towards the location, the tour guides were directing them to not take pictures of the soldiers for special reasons. While they traversed through the city, they stopped at the monuments of North Korea's world leaders to record and show respects. Then they drove a few miles outside of Pyongyang in a part of North Korea where it was snow on the ground and dust blowing across barren trees. As the guests arrived to their first destination, the government officials and Mr. James peered through tinted glass. Then they get out and head in. Ulrich later meets up with them. At the first event, they had a great dinner with a lot of alcohol, both sitting across from one another with the same goal in mind, with a differential smile plastered on their face. Neither man is free of fear. Their hearts are slamming against their ribs, but they know every move is being watched. A North Korean official sits opposite of them, whom we'll call Mr. Kong. They make small talk about how honored the DPRK is to host a potential investor, while eating a great dinner with a lot of alcohol. People were singing. Ulrich and James taking pictures with beautiful North Korean women, laughing and having a gay old time. Ulrich had went up to his room earlier so he could wind down after a long day in the airport. But shortly after, Mr. Kong came up to his room and asked him, "Are you sure that this man has all the money that he's talking?" In that moment, Ulrich had to say something. Anything to keep the identity of himself and Jin secret. So, as the trip to North Korea's most formidable city starts to unravel itself, the deal they are making is still fresh on their minds, but they had to take it slow and let things play out. In the beginning, it was just sightseeing and looking at houses and business centers. They even visited a science and technology complex, which was inaugurated the year before. This, how should we call it? A courtship period lasted about 2 days. Then things started getting serious. The third morning they got picked up. They were looking at each other like, okay, is this another sightseeing or what? When they are in the car, one of the North Korean officials says, "We're going to meet some people that can sort you out." All the time they have been in North Korea, they only been driving downtown. Now they started to drive outside of the downtown area, and then suddenly they make that left turn, and now it's not in a place where you would show tourists. And then they drove outside of Pyongyang into a slum area. Jim and Ulrich start getting a little worried something doesn't seem right. But at this point, it ain't nowhere to run. So they would just have to focus in on the mission at hand. Jim grunts affirmatively, playing the tough businessman who's seen it all. Ulrich offers a polite comment about Pyongyang's winter beauty, earning a satisfied nod from Mr. Kong. So far, so good. Hidden on their persons, cameras tucked away, one cleverly disguised as a button on Ulrich's shirt and another cleverly hidden in Jim's pen. They are walking into the lion's den armed with nothing but recorders and nerves. After days of logistical maneuvering and enticing their hosts with promises of millions in investment, they've been brought to a secret underground showroom, a bunker, or even perhaps a military museum closed to the public. But in reality, this is where North Koreans displays forbidden merchandise to trusted friends looking to make a purchase far from prying eyes and satellite surveillance. The car came to a stop at an abandoned building with armed guards in olive uniforms. As Mr. Kong, Ulrich and Mr. James arrived to the property, Ulrich took a long breath and swallows hard. Then they were ushered inside. Mr. James grunts affirmatively, playing the tough businessman who's seen it all. Armed with nothing but recorders and nerve, descending a dimly lit stairwell that seems to go on forever. The air smells of cold metal and oil. Jim cracks a joke under his breath. Ulrich forces a tiny laugh. He feels like they're entering a UST Bond villain's lair, except this is real, and there's no extraction team waiting if something goes. As they arrive, they stop at a rotting house. They start going inside towards the bottom of the facility. Fluorescent lights buzz to life, and they walk them down to a basement. As they continue walking down, they come to a stairwell, and Ulrich thinks it's really creepy. But then a big door opened, and they came into this luxury conference room with a big table with a lot of food. And then suddenly, they are in a really, really nice restaurant under a basement house. Yeah, were they frightened? But they slowly realized it was just another social event to keep tabs on them. When they found out who they were sitting next to, they had to get out of that frightened mindset and act accordingly. In a MI5 debriefing with an ex-British intelligence agent, Ulrich identifies 3 different people plus Mr. Kong, the president from the arms factory and the intelligence officer. The intelligence officer's English is really good, and his questions was definitely different from the others, and he kind of started to interrogate Jim without making it seem too aggressive. And at this very moment, they have to come up with a company name because they didn't have a company name at that time. So Jim says the one who's taking care of this is Taga Group, a random name he just made up off the top of his head. Hopefully he remembers it. Then there was one they refer to as Stoneface. And at their surprise, they revealed a gallery of weapons laid out like a twisted trade show. Missiles and launchers, stacks of rifles, crates of grenades, and tanks. Jim raises his eyebrows, intentionally looking impressed. The official Mr. Kong beams with pride and begins to play salesman. He gestures at a sleek gray missile on a platform. This is our Scud variant. Its range is 700 kilometers. Very effective, he says matter-of-factly, as if describing a new car model. He also hands Jim a shiny brochure too. A real printout with photos and specs of different missiles, complete with diagrams. Ulrich nearly breaks character. North Korea has marketing materials for its illegal weapons. Jim flips through the pages, nodding appreciatively. Tanks too. Mr. Kong beckons them to a hulking green vehicle. Our latest model, very high quality. Ulrich runs his hand along the different price markers as if admiring craftsmanship, while his hidden camera captures every detail. They spend hours in that bunker. You can get 5 Scud missiles for 14 million, and missile launchers around the same price. And now they went up to the Scud-E missiles, going for 25 million, 1,350 kilometers blasting range. That's practically from North Korea to Japan. And that's not the highest explosive warhead they had either. They also are selling thermomerics. Basically a weapon that is so close to being a nuke, you wouldn't even know the difference if it made contact with the target. The North Koreans have PowerPoint presentations and promotional videos extolling their hardware. Some slides include price listings in US Federal Reserve notes. Ulrich realizes this is routine for them. They've done this for other shady buyers from other countries. The regime, desperate for cash to fund its nuclear program, is running a secret arms showroom for anyone corrupt enough to pay. Jim plays his role to the hilt, asking sharp questions about production capacity and delivery logistics. He casually mentions friends in the Middle East who'd love these items. Mr. Kong is delighted. He assures Mr. James that whatever he wants can be arranged through diplomatic channels, far from prying eyes. Ulrich makes mental notes. They use embassies or front companies to smuggle arms. Exactly the kind of detail investigators would salivate over. For a moment, Ulrich's mind drifts to his family back home. Here he is, deep in North Korea's secret underbelly, talking about smuggling routes for missiles that could wipe out thousands. If only his wife or kids could see this, but they can't. He's told them a cover story about a business trip to Asia. Standing in the bunker, he suppresses a shiver, not from cold, but from the realization of how utterly alone he and Jim are. If something goes wrong, no one is coming to save them. They would simply disappear. Ulrich was so excited, they drew up some agreement papers to get things started immediately. And the agreement was between James and his company and the arms factory Nare Corporation. And it's all done, signed, and sealed. The person they thought was just a casual KFA assistant filming with the approval of the Koreans was recording everything in this meeting even when they signed the contracts. He was filming that too. He was allowed to film. So, this is the silly part, because Ulrich is so well trusted at this point that they just thought he filmed for propaganda videos. At this point, reality kicked in. They are standing in a secret underground lair in a North Korean facilitating getting signatures for weapons. Ulrich and James had a lot on their minds at this point. Ulrich, in particular, couldn't shake the fact that he'd been lying to his wife for over 5 years. That had to weigh heavily on him. And Alejandro is aware of all of this. He's aware of everything. This makes Ulrich really think about his situation. And also, Ulrich will soon go to Spain to visit him and give him a detailed report about what they achieved there together with James. As the meeting went on, they agreed on building a factory outside North Korea that would make weapons and methamphetamine. And as is customary for them, they suggested it will definitely be underground. And the Koreans had a few preferences on where to build. The first destination that came up was Namibia, where they had friendly people in the government, but that was taken off the table due to the sanctions. So the next country that was put on the table was Uganda. So to sum it up, Ulrich and James are now North Korean weapons dealers and brokers. Midway through presentation, they're taken to a page. And on this page was the equipment and blueprints to make a chemistry lab. Its setup has glass beakers, industrial chemical drums with Korean labels, and something resembling a pill press. Mr. Kong explains almost casually, "This is for pharmaceuticals. We can produce medicines or other substances. A meth lab in disguise. Jim feigns a grin. High purity. We have the best scientists. Mr. Kong responds with equal cheer. It's chilling. These men are smiling and joking on negotiating the manufacturing of highly addictive drugs to sell to addicts around the world. All the while, Ulrich's camera records everything. On day 3, the North Koreans sprung the big proposal. Over a private dinner with only the closest insiders present, they returned to the idea first floated in, a secret factory. Mr. James has impressed them as a man willing to invest large sums for outsized returns. So, a senior official lays it out. North Korea will partner with Mr. James to build an underground facility on an island in Uganda. Back in Europe, the team reviews the treasure trove of footage. It's amazing to Berger's eyes. The hidden camera footage of North Koreans scouting land in Uganda to manufacture drugs. Officials in secret meetings openly discussing sanctions evasion, signed contracts, the underground bunker tour, everything they could have hoped for. They even have recordings of a North Korean ambassador in Scandinavia offering tacit approval for the project. Ulrich has accomplished what seasoned intelligence agents hadn't never even done before. Exactly how North Korea plots to dodge sanctions and sell illegal arms. But the operation isn't over. There's one final act to play, and it will be the most dangerous, the grand reveal. They had brought real raw intelligence with them. Little is known about pricing on North Korean weapon systems. But here was a fully detailed menu in hard copy. Mr. James, as a North Korean arms dealer, sounds insane. Before he came along, only a few non-Koreans had been known to broker weapons for the regime in Pyongyang. Nevertheless, Mr. James in the mall had scored a jackpot. A business agent role for trading activities. Spain 2017. Ulrich meets with Alejandro, the KFA president, at the bunker. This is perfect. Ulrich can film him so he can get more evidence to deceive him. Ulrich makes a comment to break the ice. It is hot here. It was minus 21 degrees in Pyongyang when we visited. Alejandro responded with excitement, saying, "Oh, really?" But to keep the front up of being a faithful KFA brother, Ulrich had to shift the conversation to prepare for the next mission. He would have to get Alejandro to tell him the secrets that would now provide guidance on how to operate as a businessman in Uganda. For more evidence purposes, Ulrich broadcasted multiple recording signals from this meeting. But for some odd reason, Alejandro did not think to check Ulrich for wiretaps or bugs. And he continues with the meeting, telling Ulrich everything he needs to know to prepare himself. Because nobody is going to take care of you, or the life of James, your life, and his own life is worth $50 US Federal Reserve notes. That's what it costs to hire a hitman. A hitman, and is cutthroat in the profession. Literally. He also continues to say, in the moment that you don't look at them, they will steal from you. Everything, even a drop of water. And they always need to have a boss telling them what they have to do. If not, they just sleep or steal. Sleep or steal. If the hybrid Caucasian European master is not there, they will feel like animals and start destroying, taking everything. So actually, he needs to be really careful of who to bring in, Alejandro says. Ulrich just nods with a quick yes, yes. Very careful. After the two exchange words, Alejandro told Ulrich, you have to be very vigilant. And stand on business like your life depends on it in this situation, because something out of the ordinary might happen. But then, after that comment, Ulrich made a mistake. He had mentioned the business while implying about methamphetamine and weapons. Suddenly, Alejandro just stood up and said he wanted to show Ulrich something. And then he comes back with a bug detector, asking, do you have something that is producing a radio frequency? He scans the room looking for a frequency. He stops over Ulrich's bag with a car key in it. Given the false alarm, Ulrich and Alejandro continue back to the conversation. But little did they know Ulrich was broadcasting a signal he was recording from two angles. But Alejandro decided to trust Ulrich and move on too. But Alejandro does mention a few things like, don't ever use those words again to describe the business. Because at any point and at any time, somebody could plant a listening device on you. Without even knowing, for example, someone walks up to you and says, "Welcome to Barcelona," and then puts something on you, and now you don't even know that you are broadcasting information. This is just basic information to keep you cautious. Now, Alejandro says, "All right, so that's all. Now we discussed all the issues." What happened next would freak anyone out. Ulrich hopped in the car and drove to the parking area to unload his gear. With so much on his mind, everything felt heavy. He started feeling really bad, especially thinking about his family and all the worries piling up. This was a close call. He almost lost all of the plans to build this secret factory in Uganda. Kampala, Uganda, 2017. In Uganda, Mr. James was set to orchestrate the operation, ensuring everything was documented on camera. He arranged for a photographer to shoot a corporate-style video highlighting his persona as an international man of mystery, while the mole discreetly captured hidden footage of the entire scheme. The North Koreans arrives as dawn paints Lake Victoria pink. One of the people in the basement was there, the person they named Stone Face, and Mr. Danny, the international arms dealer from North Korea. The idea was to buy an island and build a weapon factory underground. This island is perfect, is in middle of Victoria Lake. So if airplanes come down to land, the people on the mainland would not even see it. At this moment, they head to the helicopter field to take a quick picture, and then they get in to go check the island out. And how did James found the island in the first place? Like most things, he looked on Google, where you can buy private islands, and he could get it for $5 million. This idea is very good. All they would have to do is construct a factory building. And then after that, they must provide some equipment, like bring their own aircrafts to the country and repaint the planes and put them under a business name of a humanitarian aid service. They can say they are bringing some food and clothes for refugee survivors. If Mr. Jim was to do that, the Koreans would provide everything they need. When the helicopter lands, they have to get on a boat to get to a different part of the island once they arrived. The real estate man on the island said that he had told the local people who lived on the island that someone was coming in to build a hospital for the community. But that was a complete lie, because the people on the island had no idea what was really going on. But they are there to build a drug factory instead. And what's even more shocking, the whole village is there to welcome with love and thanks. The Ugandan real estate agent, the broker and government official, explained to Jim that the cover story is about a hospital and health institutions with luxury resorts for wealthy tourists. And for this to happen, the officials in Uganda have to drive them off the land first. And what they want Jim to do first is say something to introduce himself as a friendly party to the people on the island, because they do not want them to know actually what the transaction is. That going on between the landlord and Jim. When Jim realizes it, he then says, "This is why you told them that I am here to build a hospital." The officials directed him to cooperate, and he agreed and then prayed. And what was really odd, they blessed these people in Jesus' name, which doesn't make sense because a government is supposed to be for the people and protect them like family would. Then they showed them the other side of the island to have more an idea of all the things they would use to build this facility. Jim was impressed that they had something out of the box and not ordinary like they've done this before, and they had a standard plan, a standard look for disguising these sorts of facilities. They worked with other people like this, and this could be the evidence to uncover this story. They already said that they have the engineers and the knowledge to build, and Jim did not have to come up with any ideas. Jim's whole role was to play an investor, but something deep down made him feel sorry for all that he is doing as an investor. But as planned, Jim made notice of what he wants done, but the architect about the whole structure will be built by North Koreans. Ulrich started feeling really bad as they left the island because he saw thousands on this island. Thousands and thousands. They're willing to throw off the island in 4 months. If Jim, the fake investor, was to put down 5 million, the inheritance of the island will be without land or shelter. The governments involved had to sit down with Jim to get established and run some ideas across to the broker with other government officials. But Jim was quite open. He told them that they want to do something on the island. He cannot tell them what it is, but he wants 100% privacy, and they don't want any interference, and he wants that, otherwise they don't want to buy. The official made it clear to Jim that he could move the operation very fast if needed. They can have the people out of the island in 4 months. Jim says, "This is very interesting." As we dive deeper, the story starts to get a bit weird. This government official of Uganda has been working with the government itself for the last 15 years on different projects, but never once thought about helping those people before this time. An actual hospital could have been built earlier, but shady dealings and big payoffs got in the way, right? A so-called health spa, but is just another government secret cover-up by crook politicians, and then treat it as they are still giving back to society and passing it off as some CSR obligations. Then on the backside, buy some schools for other clearance purposes, to fly under the radar if the wrong kind of eyes land on this operation. The only thing they need is to be able to run smoothly without issues. They can land and take off whenever they want, and that's all part of the investment deal, with and including an aerodrome license. And that can be done as long as it as part of the investment plan blueprint. That should sound like sweet music to everyone's ears, don't it? Yes, that's exactly what they do. And after the meeting, something strange happened. Again, everyone started shouting, "Give me an amen, amen, brethren." After they actually got promised that they could actually have Ugandan customs protect the island after they run the people out. And then they prayed together, asking the Heavenly Father to bless their project and bless their corrupt ideas. Then they let out another amen, amen. As the mission unfolded, the truth about the project stayed hidden from the locals in Uganda. It was all a cover for a secret weapons and drug factory, which seemed to be right up the alley of the North Koreans, which was kind of important to prove. The location is strategic, far from North Korea, out of sight of international watchdogs, and in a region where an influx of cash can buy silence from local officials. The reality of the scheme is that weapons and methamphetamine production will be hidden beneath the golf courses and villas. 5 million to set up. A holiday resort for wealthy golfers on top, rifles, and crystal meth manufactured below. Underground facilities with total privacy, even a private airstrip capable of handling 747s for shipments. Insanely audacious. Jim strokes his beard as if considering the investment. Ulrich throws out a random question, just to stir the pot. How will we handle permits and inspections? They made clear again that everything will be arranged. In other words, they'll bribe Ugandan officials to look away. Transnational crime on a grand scale. By the end of the meeting, Jim agrees to the Uganda plan. They raise glasses in a toast to international cooperation, toasting an arms and drugs conspiracy, as if it were a legitimate business venture. Ulrich's palms are slick with sweat. This is it. They have North Korean and Ugandan officials on camera agreeing to break countless laws. But it did not stop there, because while in Uganda, the North Korean arms dealer, Mr. Denny, was ready to take the joint venture relationship a step further. They meet in the lobby of the hotel they are staying at. Benny said they had some things they needed to move as well. So for example, to the country Syria. They want some items from the North Koreans. And they would like to know if Jim can transport all the items from North Korea. That would be great. When the time is ready, he would give the signal, so he can discuss more details as the due date arrives. The North Koreans needing to move armaments to Syria is actually a very interesting piece of information. North Korea and Syria have been friends for many years. In the North Koreans were even building a nuclear reactor in the Syrian desert until the Israelis decided to blow it up during the civil war in Syria. The New York Times published a story about how North Korea was helping the Syrian regime with its chemical weapons program. At the same time, small arms from North Korea have been found in the hands of fighters from the Islamic State, but most likely these weapons were stolen from the Syrian army. So when the North Korean arms dealer, Mr. Ghani, wants to send bombs and projectiles to Syria, the end user is probably the Syrians. Jim said yes, he would like to do that. Ben mentioned you'd need to head to Beijing next. Beijing, China 2017. Sending Mr. James to Beijing to meet with North Korean arms dealers is a very risky move by the Red Chapel team, who are in the know about the dark side, advised outsiders to strongly avoid these areas. Because if the Chinese intelligence service was to get involved, if they shine their lights on Mr. James, things would change completely. Mr. James is all about excitement, just like Mads Brugger is a filmmaker who craves sensation. They both decided to meet up before MJ James heads to Beijing. Jim has been in contact with Mr. Ghani. He mentioned he passed it to his partner, who will move it forward. On the first day, only 2 guys showed up, and one of them introduced himself to be the main guy of the weapon industry. Both men are North Korean using Chinese passports. The next day, the mysterious stone face who came to Beijing in order to verify the identity of Mr. James. He never says a word or even smiles, so we can never know for sure about Stoneface. But it is safe to say that his appearance, even these walls have ears and eyes, you know. They are looking for the right person to handle their transports. When the meeting ends, you could totally feel that rush of relief and excitement in the air. The Koreans and Mr. Jim have a great plan to ship goods worldwide. Let's turn our focus back to Spain. 2017. Another concern was the mole going back to Spain to brief Alejandro about the tourist project, the code name picked for the secret weapons and drug factory in Uganda. By now, the mole had been undercover for more than 7 years, and paranoia was running high. So far, no intelligence service had caught on to them. But every time we met with Alejandro, we had to consider the possibility that he was being followed by international authorities at the same time. We also had to consider the risk that Alejandro would upgrade his counter-surveillance with new devices. For the risk of discovering microphones, the mole would only meet with Alejandro in a hotel, picked by the Red Chapel team, with security right next door just in case his cover was blown. For Mr. James, things started to seem like things were taking on a life of its own, and that was concerning. At this point, especially with all of the random deals in the air about transporting so-called goods to other countries. The deal for this move took forever, almost a year, with no one making any progress. Spain 2018. The harbor of Barcelona. The second meeting with Ulrich, James, and Alejandra. Alejandra gets this wise idea that they can make a triangle deal with North Koreans, keeping this deal under the radar with sneaky methods. In short, on James's side of the deal, he will have to send the fuel to North Korea. And in return, James gets the payment in armaments and pharmaceutical drug supplies to send to the island in Uganda. The general idea is that you want to spend less time trying to plan against surveillance, but make it seem like a regular shipping deal involving 2 other countries, creating what's known as a triangle trade. All the mole had to do was get Mr. James to Jordan to meet with the Middle Eastern contact, playing the part of a good mole, while Ulrich casually suggested something over a Bloody Mary. Due to the sanctions, the concept is very easy to understand when trying to receive oil, but also a little complicated because of the sanctions and so on the nature of the business. So the deal is that our company Taga Group will meet in Jordan to establish a route for the shipment and to meet with the contact Kamar Dasuki. 2018. Amman, Jordan. Jim went to meet this Mr. Dasuki face to face, so the two proxies went to Jordan to find out if there really is a man named Mr. Dasuki who wants to triangle trade with them and North Korea. The first meeting was in Mr. James's hotel room, which was paid off by the government so that they are safe from other spying countries. It will be a bit tricky because the satellites are always recording. During this meeting, Ulrich went to the bathroom to freshen up and calm down from the excitement of being an internal mole for Mads. When he was done in the bathroom, he came back to the meeting, and they decided to meet up the next day to sign contracts. When the next day came, the contracts were signed, and evidence of international arms dealing and fraud was recorded. Ulrich was heading out, back to Europe, to meet a North Korean official, to discuss the architecture of the project. 2018 Sweden. Mr. Ree and Ulrich are looking at drawings of a compound that was designed by the North. Ulrich plans on presenting this project to his faithful KFA comrades. But before he goes, Mr. Ree makes it clear he does not want this to smell like the DPRK was involved. After the short visit, Ulrich heads back to Denmark. Copenhagen, Denmark, 2019. In this tale of intrigue and deception, a new character made his appearance. It was Mr. Ju, a North Korean envoy who came to Copenhagen to do business with Mr. James. Last time, he had planned a trip to Denmark in order to expand the tourism market into Scandinavian countries. And Alejandra already knows about this deal as well, because this was a part of the triangle trade aspect too. While on this venture, the North Koreans would soon discover that Denmark is also a very alcoholized country. For Danish culture, they took some shots of alcohol and went to take pictures at the Little Mermaid, but they were so drunk that they didn't even know what they was doing. But as discussed, if Mr. James chose to honor the contract he signed in Copenhagen, he would have to wire millions of dollars to Mr. Dasuki in Jordan as payment for oil to North Korea. In return, North Korea would deliver manpower and products to the island of Mr. James, and so goes the triangle trade. But some time had passed, and Mr. Dasuki was growing impatient and was now threatening legal action unless Mr. James honored their contract and showed him the money. Meanwhile, the North Korean weapons dealer Mr. Danny, whom they met in Uganda, was pushing for a meeting with Mr. James in order to speed up things in the business. Phnom Penh, Cambodia, 2019. The new circle of trust meets in a hotel in Cambodia, where Mr. James was taken to the next level in the business. Mr. Danny, the arms dealer, gave him a new order list, and these special items on this list they had to ship were not common things for an average person to have. London, 2019. The investigation had gone as far as it could, so Mr. James had to disappear thanks to an intervention. Mr. James went off the grid and simply vanished, no longer answering his phone nor his emails. In short, Mr. James became a ghost. Meanwhile, the mold was taking care of business as the KFA delegate of Scandinavia. First, he went to London to protest against the British brainwashing company, which is referred to that by Mr. Dermot Hudson, his comrade in arms, the British delegate of the Korean Friendship Association. Back in Spain, summer 2019, the mole went to Spain for his last in-person meeting with his president of the KFA, Alejandro. Alejandro spoke openly at the meeting, sharing thoughts about British people. He made claims that they tend to be quite dirty. They love dirty, moldy, rusty things like old carpets on the floor that are entirely covered in mud, with the boots full of it in the house. After the conversation shifted, they had to talk about what was most important, and that was the sudden disappearance of Mr. James. It is difficult playing a role and lying in people's faces for years. It is even harder to trust people you do not know, or even people you know, like James, who was a very rich man, very powerful, very influential, but not a very humble person. James is an opportunistic person who just wanted to get whatever and push out everyone without recognizing the work. Alejandro also goes on to praise Ulrich on how he has been loyal, even as a servant to the loyal. He also mentioned that Mr. James, he was treating him like a servant instead of a friend. Copenhagen, Denmark, 2019. To top it off, the Mole had been chosen as the host of the annual KFA meeting. Mads wrote the Mole's speeches, and now he's ready to deliver the last one. Dear comrades of the KFA, we are at war, and we have every right to wage war against our enemies, because one person can change the outcome of history, but what about us? You might ask, what have we been doing as a KFA? Delegates for Scandinavia, I would here present the tourist project. Mads planned it. The Mole would share the results with the secret delegates at the meeting. He had recorded every second, no matter what anyone said at this meeting had been implicated and recorded for evidence. All this hard work he had been doing with his mentor, Alejandro. And Alejandro doesn't even know. Beautiful hotel ideas with swimming pools and rooms with meeting areas with attached golf courses for private officials. Of course, the Mole would only use the quoted phrases for drugs and weapons, which Alejandro had told him in the bunker in Spain. When referring to something in the business, just say seafood when you mean drugs. And for weapons, call them handmade arts and crafts by the native people. Following the annual meeting, one member of the Korean Friendship Association praised the tourist project. On the message board of the KFA, Alejandro quickly told the Mole to delete everything at once. Also, a member named Shung Paul left the KFA because he panicked about spying and hacking. After months of planning since the Pyongyang trip, Ulrich and Jim gear up for one last meeting. The trap is laid, an island earmarked for a phantom resort. Pyongyang believes Mr. James will seal the Uganda deal. But beneath the table, Ulrich and the film crew see only a trapdoor waiting to slam. They've tipped off a handful of trusted reporters, and very quietly, a couple of UN eyes. Something big is about to surface. First, though, they must walk through the fire without singeing their cover. The Koreans have a clever solution for every obstacle. Containers disguised as humanitarian aid, well-placed connections, and paperwork that feels sketchy. The efficiency is dazzling and chilling. Hidden lenses take in every face, every document, every handshake. Mr. James is expected to wire a fat down payment through an oil deal, where a shell company promised crude to Pyongyang, letting them funnel hard currency into the island. It looks legal on paper, but it actually violates more than 5 UN sanctions. Now in Kampala, they ask if the oil is loading for the triangle deal. Jim smiles and assures them it is. No ship will ever sail. It's all mirrors and fog. The island steals the show. Check out the blueprints, real designs, villas and fairways up top, weapon hulls and meth labs below. Yet here it is, warm in Ulrich's palms, exhilaration in one hand, dread in the other. The meeting ends with smiles all round. Pyongyang believes it has pocketed a jackpot cash pipeline, a secret factory, a prestige project. Jim promises the balance next quarter. They pencil a groundbreaking gala for late year. Ulrich shakes hands with men who on any other day would probably order his death without blinking. Mr. Kong really believes Ulrich is a true friend of the DPRK and is trustworthy. Ulrich is feeling the weight of it all. The decades he spent earning the trust of everyone is crumbling in real time. Days from now, these same men will discover the quiet man claiming to be an ally was wearing a wire all along. Some will be forced to face the music when they get home. Some will swear it was entrapment. All will become strangers. This is the unspoken goodbye the Mole was leading up to. In 2020, a few weeks later in Copenhagen, Ulrich sits in a television studio, palms sweating under the table. Opposite him are investigative journalists and an ex-MI5 officer who's been advising quietly behind the scenes. The cameras are about to roll for the documentary premiere. The world is about to learn what Mr. James and the mole accomplished. Ulrich feels relief to finally step out of the shadows. Anxiety for his safety, even sadness. In some twisted way, he'd formed human connections with people he was betraying. He reminds himself why he did it. North Korea's regime will stop at nothing to evade sanctions and build weapons unless someone exposes them. That someone turned out to be him, an unemployed chef from Copenhagen. The only thing left was an even more difficult conversation with his wife and Alejandro. When Ulrich informed his wife, she was pretty upset about the ordeal, but when he met with Alejandro, things got more difficult. 10 years of lies. The video link window pops open. Alejandro's face fills the frame. Ulrich forces a steady breath, leans closer to the mic, and begins. Before we start the Q&A, there's something you deserve to know. I haven't spent 10 years at your side out of mere friendship. Every dinner, every handshake, every late-night strategy call has been filmed. I've been acting as a mole because I'm making a documentary, and you are its central character. I'd like you to meet the director who's guided this project from day one. He nods off screen. Mads Brugger slides into view, calm, almost courteous. He says, "Hello, Alejandro. Yes, we meet again. I should inform you that everything is on tape. We basically know everything. This is the end of a very long." The last syllable is still leaving Mads' mouth when the feed freezes pixel by pixel, flags and medals locked in a digital stutter. The silence that follows is absolute. Ulrich and Mads sit motionless, staring at the static square, unsure whether the line was cut or the man on the other side simply ran out of airtime. Yet both feel the same quiet certainty. The trap has sprung, the story is loose, and the world now owns the footage. The documentary airs first in Denmark and the UK, then globally on Netflix. The reaction is electric. Viewers see with their own eyes North Korean diplomats arranging an arms factory in Uganda, offering missiles and drugs like items from a catalog. Governments scramble. Sweden and Denmark's foreign ministers lodge formal complaints to the UN, deeply concerned over the brazen sanctions busting revealed on camera. The UN Sanctions Committee is handed the footage as evidence. Investigations launch across multiple countries. Picture the scene. A quiet living room in Copenhagen, lights dimmed, popcorn going cold as the opening bars of the documentary roll. Within hours, the same images are racing across timelines in Lagos, London, and Los Angeles. North Korean diplomats haggling over scud prices like they're selling second-hand cars with meth lab blueprints. And the internet does what it does best. It goes wild. In Stockholm, the foreign minister's phone buzzes before midnight. By dawn, Copenhagen has filed an official UN complaint, and the Sanctions Committee staff are already clipping the footage into evidence. Somewhere in a tower in Geneva, a panel expert mutters the line that will haunt Pyongyang, the most severe embarrassment to Chairman Kim we have ever screened. Meanwhile, Alejandro Cao de Bino's Spanish aristocrat turned Kim superfan jumps on YouTube, eyes wild, flags draped behind him, shouting Western fabrication. The algorithm loves it. The comment section doesn't. He's still ranting when investigators in 3 countries open case files with his name on the cover. North Korea itself says nothing, at least not out loud. And the mole? He's back in suburbia, pushing a shopping cart through bright aisles, looking over his shoulder, and taking the long way home. No flashy car, no medal, just a new routine of parking under different streetlights each night. The regime he humiliated doesn't forgive people like this. He knows the shadow might follow him for decades. Yet when he talks to reporters, he just shrugs, almost embarrassed. It was never like James Bond. Think of it more as a poker game. Lots of chatting, a friendly smile, and then the big reveal. For a single remarkable deal, the world got to peek at the life he was molding, and North Korea lost this one.